Hi, I'm Shivan Sarna, and I'm very glad to have you here today. Kiran Krishnan is our special guest. He'll be here shortly. And we're going to be talking about the microbiome, visceral fat, which is belly fat, and hormones, as well as I'm going to ask him about if you're underweight, what you can do to help with that, because it is very, very serious. And what we need to know if we do have too much of a body weight. Now, this is not any fat shaming. This is all just about health and happiness. Do you? Okay, so 1,000 disclaimers coming your way. I worked in a very, very intensive, competitive, image-oriented business for over 24 years on TV. And you could not be fat at that station. I'm telling you that right now. It was like you could not have a higher body mass index than what was deemed appropriate by management. It wasn't a great situation. So I can really appreciate anybody who feels a little bit uncomfortable. When I was a yoga teacher back in the 90s, I was so skinny that you could see my ribs and I thought I was fat. So that's just a little cuckoo messed up in the head. But fortunately, I'm healthy and happy and have regulated my weight, and mainly from a health perspective. I do have high blood sugar, as many Indians of East Asian descent do, as I'm half Irish and half Indian. It's also linked with heart situations. So my father died of a heart attack and an aneurysm after he'd had 2 other heart attacks, and he had a belly and skinny arms and skinny legs, and that is often a sign. So it is a global epidemic for blood sugar issues and insulin resistance. And so I'm particularly interested in this because of the visceral belly fat that's associated with those conditions. So if you have a question, put it into the Q&A box. Thank you for being here. We do have a coupon for you at 15% off everything from Microbiome Labs, including the vaginal microbiome test, the gut microbiome test, and all the supplements, along with this new one, which is now available at Microbiome Labs. Mine has like some black ink on, sorry about that, but it's the Zen Biome Dual, which is supporting digestive comfort and mood self-regulation, which is so very interesting. So we are now going to, I'm going to call him because I want to see how he's doing. So that's what's happening right now. I'm going to pause the recording. So you've probably seen all of the magazines and the TV shows about Ozempic, semaglutide. If you have digestive issues, especially leaning towards, he's coming now, towards constipation, that is a drug that can help regulate your blood sugar, but it also slows stomach emptying. And it has to do with how the insulin in your body works and how they don't want too much food going into your body, so that keeps it in the stomach a little bit longer, so that you don't have an insulin reaction that is not right for you, to keep you in a healthier blood sugar range. And so it can make you vomit because the stomach emptying is slowed, and it can lead to some constipation. Now, some people love it and some people hate it, and other people are like, it worked for me, I have had really good results. So I just wanted to mention that because it's all over the media right now. I have actually tried it and have been using it because of my high blood sugar. I do it on a very low dose. I've never vomited more in my life. And also it did fix my blood sugar. So I've been weighing the pros and cons of that and have found it to be helpful for me as an individual. The individual results are there. I just wanted to mention it because there is so much talk about it. So we will be talking a little bit about hormones. Petunia the cat is here, so all is well. Leanie, did you pop your comment? Oh no, this is just a comment. No gallbladder, gaining weight, liver is congested, not sure what to do. Waist is growing also. Already dairy-free, gluten-free, no bad oils, no alcohol, no smoking, exercise every day. So it's not just about calories and exercise, right? It's about those hormones that you're talking about. And it is about metabolism, right? It's not just calories. And when I was a personal trainer, back in the day, it was about, 2,500 calories leads to, unused leads to 1 pound of fat. It was very calorie focused. I'm so glad to see that the pendulum has swung, and now it's more about your hormones, your digestion, your microbiome, eating good food, to your point. And then also Sharon saying, I've lost 23 pounds down to 100 pounds, need to help put on weight healthily. If you do not have enough body mass, it is very serious. So I used to only think about weight loss because that was the way my brain was trained. And then I had a very special client named Carlene, who you all might know from coming to these. And she said, hey, Shivan, wake up. Talk about underweight, because that is a life-threatening situation as well. So I do want to talk to Kiran about that. Why, hello, sir.
Hello, how are you? Sorry I'm late.
No problem. We've been talking about, well, they've been very kind in listening to me about Ozempic, semaglutide that slows your stomach emptying. And let's get to it, Kiran. This is Kiran Krishnan. He is our very special guest today. He's the co-founder of Microbiome-Labs. So many of you are fan boys and girls like I am, following it anywhere and everywhere on social media, where he's been even more lately. He is traveling much of the year teaching other educators, doctors, researchers about the microbiome and probiotics and what can be done with the formulations out there and with the strains out there. All evidence-based, and it's a pleasure to have you here, sir, on this topic today of visceral fat, body mass, and certainly we do want to talk a little bit about underweight as well. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Really good. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Great to be here as always.
So what is your takeaway? What do you want us to know about balancing our body weight?
Yeah, it's obviously a very prevalent struggle for many people, and for many people it starts at a very young age. Interesting thing is that studies came out about 10 years ago, 9-10 years ago almost. Some of the first studies came out that showed that children who were born of C-section had a much higher propensity for obesity and weight management issues than kids who were vaginal birth. Right. So right away it started saying, okay, there's some impact on the microbiome on this. Kids who are bottle fed versus kids who are breastfed tend to have more struggles with weight. And then the microbiome, and then the studies went on to looking at discordant twins. So discordant twins are basically identical twins, right? So they're genetically identical, but one twin is obese and the other twin is lean, right? So it has nothing to do with their genetics because they have same genetics. In fact, they grew up in the same household, ate for the most part the same foods, but at some point one twin became obese and the other one stayed lean. So what they would do is they would take the microbiomes from the lean twin and the microbiome from the obese twin. They have a congruent set of mice that are genetically identical. These are called no-biotic mice. These are mice that have no microbiomes. They're raised in a sterile environment, with no microbes. And then they would implant the microbiome from the obese twin into a set of mice and the microbiome from a lean twin into a set of mice. And then they would feed the mice the same exact diet, right? And what they found is that no matter what they fed the mice that got the obese twins microbiome, those mice always gained weight. And even though they fed the same thing at the same timing to the mice that got the lean twins microbiome, those mice always stayed lean. Right. And so then they would swap it. They would knock out all the microbes in the mice, they would put them through a bunch of antibiotics, and then they would switch. And they would, in the crossover, they would also find that anytime the mice had the obese twins microbiome, no matter what they fed them, they always gained weight. Right. So those were the early set of studies that started to indicate that the microbiome plays a significant role in weight management. And it's not just, a disciplinary issue, right? We always thought of weight as like, oh, get it together, just eat less calories than you burn, or you don't have any self-control, right? And it's just a matter of the individual's mindset and composition. When it turns out there's something more devious going on. There are people that have a obese microbiome. There are people that have a lean microbiome. So when I started looking into this about 6-7 years ago, what I kept focusing on is like those people that we all know that can eat almost whatever they want and never gain weight, right? We used to always say that, oh, they have a fast metabolism. But as it turns out, they have a specific microbial composition in their gut that allows them to remain lean, allows them to have higher degree of lean muscle as well, and rarely struggle with weight issues. And so I wrote this white paper a number of years ago called Metabolic Reprogramming. And that's the idea of reprogramming your metabolism and how your body responds to food just by making certain changes in your microbiome, not changing your diet, not changing your lifestyle at all, and just changing your microbes to a certain degree. And I theorize that that would lead to somebody completely changing their body composition. Now, a few years forwarded later, we had the resources to actually test this. And so we conducted a double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial, which published at the end of last year. And basically, here's what we saw, right? And I'll explain what is changed about the microbiome that makes you a pro-lean or pro-obese microbiome. But basically what we saw in a 12-week study, and we split the participants, these were overweight individuals, BMI of 39 to 40. These were individuals that had no exercise regimen, no dietary controls, meaning they weren't on any plan at the moment. They were just eating and doing whatever they did that kept them overweight. And so we split the group in two. One group, we gave a couple of spores and a prebiotic. The other group, we gave placebo. At the end of the 12-week period, with no changes in exercise, with no addition of exercise, no changes in diet, the group that got the probiotic and prebiotic had a 35% reduction in visceral fat mass, right? And we know visceral fat is a fat around your organs and midsection, which is the most dangerous fat because it's a fat that drives all the inflammation, right? And this is through DEXA scanning. So that's a dual X-ray system, which is the most accurate way of scanning for body composition changes. And then not only that, we did an RNA blast analysis to see what genes are turned on and off in these individuals compared to the placebo group. And basically what we saw in the individuals, there were about 25 different genes that were turned on consistently in the individuals on the treatment product that are associated with improved sugar metabolism, improved fat burning, and improved lean muscle building, right? And all of this without any sort of dietary changes or exercise, right? Now, I would never advocate that you don't exercise and you don't watch your diet. You need to do that. But this illustrated that a simple change in the microbiome could reprogram how your body responds to food, even if you're still eating the unhealthy foods that you've been eating, right? So that's the premise here, and there's tons of studies showing the microbiome impacting weight. We've been able to prove the theory I had around reprogramming the body without changing behavior. And then on top of that, if you change behavior after reprogramming the microbiome or while reprogramming the microbiome, I think the results would be profound for people.
So of course, everyone's asking, at least I am, right? Was it this megaspore and megapre?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, we only used two of the strains in megaspore, so the subtilis and the coagulans, at the dose that's in megaspore. So if you're taking megaspore, it covers that. And then with megapre, we actually only use one of the 4 prebiotics that are in megapre, and we use it at the dose that's in the megapre right now. So if you take megaspore and megapre, it covers you. Now let me explain why this happens, right? Why this shift happens. So what's clear about individuals who have a lean body mass and has a microbiome that supports lean body mass, these individuals tend to have microbes that produce lots of short chain fatty acids, butyrate in particular, right? And then they also tend to have high levels of bifidobacteria, or bifidogenic diet. So elevated levels of bifidobacteria are associated with lean body mass. And then they also can produce things like conjugated linoleic acid. So these are really healthy fatty acids. But the short chain fatty acids are really, really important. And here's why. Here's what happens when you eat food, right? When you eat food, your body is in starvation mode. For example, if you haven't eaten in a while, you feel the hunger pangs, right? So your ghrelin, your hunger hormone levels are elevated. So you've got high hunger hormones. Your brain is releasing all the hunger hormones to motivate you to go eat. and go find food. Keep in mind that for most of human evolution, we didn't have ready access to food. So you'd have to be motivated to go out and find, whether it's foraging or hunting or gathering, whatever it is the individual did. So your body motivates you by creating these really painful hunger pangs and this kind of starvation mode where all you can think about is food, right? We've all been there. And so everything looks like food. Everything reminds you of some food you like, right? We've all been there. That is evolutionary adaptation to motivate you to get out of the cave, go into danger, find food to eat. So now you've got ghrelin really high. So ghrelin does that. Now you start eating. Just the process of eating alone, what's supposed to happen is as food enters your system, your microbes start to metabolize carbohydrates and fibers and proteins and all that that's coming in from the food. As the microbes start to metabolize that, certain classes of microbes start producing things like short chain fatty acids, especially butyrate. Then what butyrate does is they start binding receptors in the lining of the gut. You actually have some of these receptors close to the mouth, close to the stomach, but a lot of them are in the large part of the bowel. When you bind these receptors called GLP-1 and PYY, it starts to send a signal from your gut to your brain that says, hey, okay, we've got food, stop producing the hunger hormone, start producing the satiety hormone called leptin. Now, this hormone tells you, okay, I'm good. I don't need to eat anymore. So number one, you don't overeat, because gorging yourself and overeating is a big issue. And that's a thing that happens with people that suffer from obesity, right? It's called leptin resistance is one way of describing it. It's overeating. That off switch doesn't work so well. We've all been there. I do that constantly when it's things I really like. I have to consciously focus on, okay, I'm full, I should stop eating. You can very easily eat beyond fullness. And so once your body is designed to start releasing leptin so that you have the satiety signal, and then ghrelin levels go way down. So the hunger hormone goes way down, satiety hormone goes up. So now your body can go into not feeding mode, but into digestion mode, right? So now your evolutionary instincts are telling you, stop feeding, go back into the cave, into safety. You're going to get sleepy. You are going to divert energy away from every other part of your body. We're going to put a lot of energy into your gut so you can start digesting and assimilating the food, and you can start burning fuel as well. Now, one of the components of the signals that turns on leptin, the satiety hormone, that signal also activates something called cyclic AMP, which tells all of the cells in your body to start burning fat for fuel. It also
that again, Kiran?
AMPK. So there's this thing called AMPK, which is a signal that comes from the gut that tells all your cells in your body, hey guys, we've got food coming in. We need to make energy. Let's start burning fat for fuel, right? It doesn't necessarily want to burn sugar unless your sugar in your diet goes way up, right? So from that meal, if your sugar levels are really high, then it's going to preferentially burn sugar because your body wants to maintain a very healthy blood sugar level. So it's going to stop the fat burning and burn sugar instead. This is also another thing that occurs in a Western diet because every meal has such a high insulin response. We end up burning more sugar and then we negate the fat burning part of it, right? And eventually your body really stops becoming efficient at burning fat. So you have to retrain your body at burning fat, but that requires a signal from the microbiome, this activation of AMPK. And the activation of AMPK comes from butyrate, comes from managing the metabolic byproducts of fermentation. So we've all heard of metformin, right? This really well-known drug that does a great job actually of maintaining relatively healthy blood sugars in pre-diabetics and diabetics. Metformin in principle works by increasing butyrate production, right? So it impacts the gut microbiome. And this is also why now a lot of doctors are looking at metformin as a longevity drug, right? Because it maintains healthy blood sugar levels and healthy metabolism through upregulating butyrate. Right, this is affecting the microbiome in that way by enhancing butyrate production. We can do it through prebiotics and probiotics. You don't have to take that drug, right? And so, at least for maintenance of body weight. Of course, if you have diabetes and all that, work with your doctor on it. This is not to say that you shouldn't take your drug, but the idea here is that we can modulate these minor things. We can increase short chain fatty acid production in the gut. That alone will help your gut tell your brain that you're full, and then start activating fat burning, and then actually reduce the number of calories you absorb from the food. The other component to it is leaky gut, right? Leaky gut increases a condition called leptin resistance, which is the inability of your gut and your brain to communicate. So the satiety signals from leptin don't work the way they used to. So this causes chronic overeating, right? Which is a big condition in people who are struggling with weight. Leaky gut is a big driver of that. So that was the other part of the hypothesis, is we know the spores can help resolve leaky gut to a certain degree. And then you've got the prebiotics that can help increase butyrate. Between those two mechanisms, we should be able to reprogram your metabolism, which we were able to show in the published study that you can absolutely do that, right? So that's a mechanism behind it. And it's a very powerful tool for people who are really trying to reset their metabolism, trying to get back on track of having a healthy response to food, and then also need that extra support because the other problem with food and overeating and all that is it also stokes dopamine. So we become addicted to that feeling, right? So food is a dopaminergic substance, which from an evolutionary standpoint is really important because, again, our brain wants to reward us for making the effort to go find food. And so every time you eat, you get a dopamine surge and that rewards you and that creates a pattern of behavior. But these days, because food is plentiful, we don't need that dopamine response, but people still use food to stimulate dopamine. So all of this helps rebalance the metabolic process.
Couple of questions. So with the Megapre and the Megaspore, how long were people on it in your study?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. I know you already said that, but I just had to have it go back and
No, we looked at interim data. We looked at 8 weeks and 12 weeks. There was a measurable change at 8 weeks, but the profound change came at 12 weeks. Now, keep in mind that these are people that are not eating a healthy diet at all. They're not exercising at all, right? Now, I would estimate that if this study also included a exercise regimen and some changes to diet, they would have probably seen an impact in half that time, in 6 weeks.
Look, let's face it, everyone needs to be moved. They need to move their lymph and enjoy fluid fascia, and you need to balance out the caloric intake, diversify your fiber intake, balance out the microbiome and the hormones. I mean, make sure you have enough water. Make sure you're not constantly in a sympathetic fight or flight state, so your cortisol is not all freaked out. But if you can have that microbiome more balanced, that's amazing that those people had those results, and everyone's results are going to vary, and this isn't medical advice. And boy, in 12 weeks, what an amazing set of results in your study. A couple of things. What if our Akkermansia, which you hear all the time about this, is non-existent? Would we still need to take it in addition to Megaspore and Megapre? Remember, Megaspore is a gatekeeper, guys and gals. So it helps to be like the neighborhood watch to help balance out the bad players and help enhance the good players.
Now, number one, it's important to note that there's no indication that you can take Akkermansia as a probiotic and have it engrafted in your system, right? So that's still a big question because it is a strict anaerobe. It is very unstable. It doesn't exist outside of the body. So it doesn't mean that if you take an Akkermansia probiotic, you're going to end up with Akkermansia. That's never been shown, even by the companies that have the Akkermansia probiotics. What I would say is that we've published a study showing that even in people with undetectable levels of Akkermansia, and the reason why they would be undetectable is because their levels are so low. It doesn't mean it's not there, right? That's an important thing to understand, right? So when you're trying to find a microbe in a mix of stool, right? So consider the stool and consider that you've got trillions of microbes in there, and you're trying to find one species. And keep in mind that the species is not uniformly distributed throughout the stool. So if that organism is at a very low percentage in your total stool, and you pick up, one sample of the stool, the chances of finding it is really low. So then you send that sample in for the test, and then the test will show there's no Akkermansia detected. It doesn't mean it's not there, right?
Yeah.
Because what we were able to show in our study is that in individuals where we had undetectable Akkermansia, 3 weeks of taking probiotic and prebiotic, all of a sudden their Akkermansia levels were way up. We didn't add Akkermansia into their system, right? These were people that have Akkermansia, but it's at such a low level that you need to provide the right environment for Akkermansia to thrive again. You should always, when we're considering a healthy metabolism, always be working on increasing Akkermansia, your endogenous Akkermansia. You do that simply by a couple of different mechanisms. Number one, fasting, right? Intermittent fasting increases Akkermansia, right? And it's great for your metabolism in numerous ways, but one of the ways in which intermittent fasting is really good for metabolism and weight loss is because it can increase Akkermansia. So that's one thing. Number two, polyphenols. Akkermansia really enjoys polyphenols. That's its primary food source that it likes. And so taking in adequate amounts of polyphenols, whether you're getting it from eating actual berries and cherries and things like that, or you're taking a polyphenol supplement, those things will increase the growth of Akkermansia. So if you're struggling with weight and metabolic health, you should absolutely be focusing on trying to get your Akkermansia levels up anyway, right? Because having adequate Akkermansia levels is part of what will keep you lean, right? So that you don't have to keep yo-yoing through these weight changes, right? If you clean up your diet, you start adding in some movement and exercise, you do a prebiotic and probiotic to increase short chain fatty acids and so on, and then you're doing some specific things to increase Akkermansia, like fasting, polyphenols, you're doing those things, then what you'll experience is you'll experience steady weight loss, steady metabolic changes. Your body will respond to food differently. You'll be less susceptible to weight gain, even if you deviate from your diet. And then the stability of your weight loss will be much better because now your system is leaning and geared towards being a lean individual.
Okay. What is the dosage for the megaspore on the daily basis for the 12 weeks and the megapre? Linda wants to know.
It's the same dose that of normal.
On the bottle.
Yeah. Yep.
Whatever's on the bottle.
Whatever, 2 caps a day of megaspore. You don't have to go any higher than that. That covers the subtilis and coagulants. And then the prebiotics is 1 scoop a day.
So the Akkermansia supplement that's out there floating around, are you guys planning on doing one in the near future?
One of the problems we had, we
Not
worked with
really.
Akkermansia. It's a very, very difficult microbe to stabilize because it is anaerobic, meaning oxygen is toxic to it, right? So growing it is a problem. Getting it to survive through the GI tract is a problem. I mean, much more robust organisms don't survive through the GI tract, right? Like bifido and lacto and all that. So it's really hard to do. I don't think there's a need for an Akkermansia probiotic because there's ways of increasing your own endogenous Akkermansia. And everybody has it. Even if it's not detectable, it's there, right? It'd be hard pressed to find an individual that has actually no Akkermansia.
And what about people who are underweight?
Mm-hmm.
Any suggestions? What happened when someone has leptin resistance but weighs 45 kilos and can't gain weight? We have a couple of people who have, I'm sure there are more than just a few, but what do you say to those folks who are struggling to keep body mass on?
Yeah, so now they may not have leptin resistance. That may not be the right condition for them.
Okay.
Because leptin resistance would mean that they are struggling with stopping eating, right? They're struggling with constant overeating. They're probably not doing that. What they're doing is they can't assimilate the food that they're eating, right? So their guts are too leaky, they're too inflamed. So this is often seen in people with celiac disease, for example, right? They become very thin, very frail. Their nails and teeth and hair all become very brittle. This is the same thing you see in cachexia and cancer. Cancer patients undergo this wasting syndrome, right? The wasting syndrome was thought to be as a result of chemotherapy, but it's not. A big study came out in 2019 showing that wasting syndrome has nothing to do with the chemotherapy or changes in diet. It's all about the leakiness in their gut, right? So those individuals who cannot put on weight and cannot sustain weight absolutely have severe leaky gut. They have lots of inflammation in the lining of their gut. Because of that inflammation, they can't absorb and assimilate nutrients properly.
Kim's going, wait, did he say bifido and lactobacillus in capsules don't survive the digestive tract?
No, most of them do not survive the digestive tract. They don't.
Okay, that's why the spores are so important, because they do.
They do, yeah. Now, there's many bifidobacter and lactose strains, specific strains that have been studied that don't need to survive. They can still enact some function in order to do that, right? This like our Bifidolongum 35624, the IBS strain, doesn't need to survive, doesn't need to colonize in order to do its work. 1714, the Zenbiome, doesn't need to survive or colonize to do its work, right? DDS1 is a lactobacillus strain, doesn't have to survive. So there are very specific strains. This is different, though. Keep in mind that this is different than those kind of hodgepodge probiotics with 15, 20 strains that are not well studied, that are claimed to be ones that survive and colonize and all that, right? So we have to get very specific when it comes to probiotics. We have to get down to the species level.
Exactly. Okay. Wendy's saying, hi, Kiran and Shivan. I have a major nervous system overreaction, adrenaline, cortisol, revved heart rate, mostly at night. Trying to discover the source trigger, very low hormones, menopause. That could be heart right there. LPS due to gut dysbiosis, overgrowth with strains that may contribute to that revved up feeling. Staph, strep, pseudomonas,
Yeah.
and of course, resistant weight gain. Question, would HU58 help calming the nervous system at all? Hold for my bottle. Where is it? What about this?
That's exactly what you would need. Yeah, Zenbiome Dual. So the reason is because what's happening in a system like that is there's a lot of neurological inflammation, right? Neuroinflammation is what triggers HPA activation. That's what triggers flight or fight response. It triggers more cortisol release, and then cortisol triggers even more flight or fight response and HPA activation. So it's a constant cycle. A lot of that neuroinflammation can be dampened with the right psychobiotic. The Zenbiome Dual does that because it dampens the neuroinflammation in the gut and then also in the central nervous system, in the brain and all that. So it can absolutely help kind of calm the nerves down. That's what it does. On top of that, the total gut restoration would be super helpful because it can start balancing out the microbiome, sealing up the lining of the gut. So then that way, there's definitely a leaky gut component to this, driving some of these artifacts that they're seeing. You want to stop the leakiness in gut. You want to start rebuilding the lining, the mucosa, especially. In the meantime, dampening the neurological activation, which will be helped by the Zenbiome Dual. So for that, I would say the total gut restoration Zenbiome Dual is a great pair to help some of those structure functional dysfunctions in there.
Kate is saying, with Megapre having kiwi fruit, which is reasonably common food allergy, if allergic to fresh kiwi, though not an anaphylactic level, so you're sensitive to it. Oh, you have instant hives in the mouth where fresh kiwi makes contact, then diarrhea within 20 minutes. Do you think it would be okay to take Megapre due to the altered format of kiwi?
I think maybe you could test it in a but that's hard to say. I mean,
yeah,
sores in the mouth and diarrhea does not sound good at all. I would hate to say you'd be okay and then you end up with diarrhea and sores in the mouth. So yeah, I can't say. We haven't had anyone take it and have that response. But nonetheless, I think I would be cautious. Now, so forget the Megapre then in your case, right? Yeah. Look for a product that has XOS, xylo-oligosaccharide. That comes from the inner part of the corn cob. That's the main prebiotic that we used in the study, which is part of Megapre. But we don't have it as a standalone, but you should be able to find it as a standalone.
Okay. For Kiran, I've purchased Megagenesis already, but I've been chicken to take it because I'm of Irish descent. And somebody pointed out that it was a tropical microbiome, like inspiration and origin. Thoughts on that? Hi, Kate.
Yeah. When you do the lineage studies on the lactobacillus strain that's in Megagenesis, in fact, I have it here because.
Can you explain what it is? Because so everyone can get in on this conversation. What is Megagenesis?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a ruderized strain, right? This is the bottle. This is what it looks like. It's a lactobacillus ruderi. It's a foundational strain that seems to have been lost it's in the Western microbiome, right? It's highly present in indigenous hunter-gatherer tribes. It's in fact very prevalent in their microbiome, and it seems to be a very important keystone species, but it requires the consumption of resistant starches as a way of maintaining this important strain. So indigenous tribes like the Papua New Guinea tribes, where we've isolated and identified the strain from, they eat a lot of resistant starches through consumption of roots and tubers and so on. We've, in the Western world, in the modern world, basically eliminated resistant starches over the last kind of 80, 100 years. It's starting to come back as people are starting to eat things like, sweet potato and cassava and so on. But that strain was likely lost. So you can do lineage studies looking at the genetics of the strain, looking at the genetics of other strains that are prevalent in our microbiome. And what seems to be clear from the genetic studies is that this strain was present in our microbiome at some point, and it's one of those many strains that we've lost because of behavior. Right. So there isn't any danger in reintroducing it. In fact, this strain was first launched in Ireland. It was developed in Ireland at the APC, at the which is the #1 research institute, the microbiome research institute in the world, and University College Cork. That's where it was developed, launched in Ireland. First people outside of the Papua New Guinea tribe to take it were Irish people in Ireland, right? So I think, and they're doing great. In fact, it was developed by Irish researchers. So
that's awesome. There's your answer.
Yeah.
There's your answer. Okay, what is the difference between what's the difference between a soil-based probiotic and a spore-based probiotic? This is a great question, Ellen, because there's a lot of terms like that floating around the universe.
Yeah, so we created this category, spore-based probiotic, right? It didn't exist prior to 2013 when we introduced it. And then within a year and a half or 2 years of us introducing it, people just started conflating it with soil-based, right? So, and the reason why that came about is there was a prevalent soil-based probiotic brand out there at the time who saw what we were doing with the spore-based and just started saying, hey, soil-based is the same as spore-based. And so then people started confusing the terms, right? But there's a significant difference. So soil-based probiotics are microbes that naturally exist in the soil, that you just gather a random amount of these microbes, and then you take it as a probiotic with the idea that you're mimicking just being out in the natural environment, which we know being out in the natural environment is beneficial for your microbiome, right, in general. The problem with it is it's a bit of a leap to try to mimic, being out in, let's say, where you go hiking, to whatever concentration of microbes that they decided to pick together and put in a capsule, right? That concentration of exposure is not necessarily a natural exposure to soil organisms. Now, spore-based organisms are basically bacillus. It's basically one genus, right? Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus coagulans, Bacillus clausii. That single genus knows how to form an endospore. That endospore allows it to be protected in the environment, and it also protects it going through the digestive tract. Very, very few organisms in the soil can actually form spores. Bacillus is one of the few organisms that can form spores, but commensal bacillus, these are ones that aren't naturally from the soil, they're naturally from the gut. When they leave the gut through defecation, they go into a spore state to protect themselves in the natural environment until they're re-swallowed again and come back into your gut. That's when they come out of the spore state and they become a normal functioning probiotic cell, right? So soil-based and spore-based are not at all the same, not even close to being the same. Okay. Very few soil organisms can form spores, and true spore probiotics are not derived from the soil, they're derived from the gut.
Fascinating. Okay, question for you about, we did a webinar yesterday with Dr. Isaac Ilias, and he's Pectosol, and he's helping people with cancer, et cetera, and helping people with glyphosate exposure. Anything to consider when taking megaspore and modified citrus pectin?
Modified citrus pectin? No, I wouldn't think so. I can't think of any
Okay.
contraindications or anything. No, I mean, I think it'd be perfectly good.
So, is there a link to the study about the weight loss with the megaspore and megapre?
Yeah, absolutely. We could send that to you if we haven't already. Yeah.
Okay, yes, send it to us ASAP so I can send it to everybody when they get the replay, or everybody in the next couple of days. It'll be when you go to the link to see Kiran's free replay of this, we'll put it there. Is it in PubMed by any chance?
It is, yeah.
Go
Yep,
to PubMed
absolutely.
and Google Kiran Krishnan, not Google, but in PubMed, search Kiran Krishnan. I just did, and there's a ton of articles there. Here, Kiran, I'm just going to really quickly pull that up. I just typed in your name. Here's PubMed, everybody. I didn't know if you're recognizing any of it there.
No, so I was not an author in this paper.
Okay.
I was a collaborator on the study. So if you put the primary author was, or one of the main authors was Brian McFarlane. So McFarlen.
Okay. We'll see what happens. And amazing brain, Brian. I don't know if I spelled his name right. Is it Brian McFarlane?
Brian McFarlane.
Oh wait, he's asking me 110 results for a different spelling. McFarlin. I have no idea. All right. Here. All right, I'm going to get out of this because this is a rabbit hole. But Kiran, if you could send us the link, we'll pop it in when we, probably not in the email because that's going to go out really quickly, guys. But when you click the link over the next couple of days, we'll try to have it in where the replays are. And when you go to the link where you're going to be able to watch this replay, all of Kiran's previous webinars are there as well. So it is all Kiran all the time on that link. Okay. What about, we have 13 minutes. Will this work if visceral fat is caused by insulin resistance?
Oh, wait, let's see. Nope, this is not it. Okay. I'll get that to you. Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
No, it's no problem. Another question about the study.
Yeah.
Was it powder or capsules, or is it just personal preference?
We use capsules in the study, but that makes no difference.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. Okay. Well, will this work if visceral fat is caused by insulin resistance?
Yeah, absolutely. Because insulin resistance is caused by the same mechanism that I talked about of having low short chain fatty acids, leakiness in the gut, low levels of bifidobacteria and Akkermansia and all of that. Yeah, absolutely. Visceral fat mass increase, liver dysfunction, insulin resistance, they're all part of cardiometabolic syndrome. Right. And what you'll see in the study, we read the study, when we look at the mRNA blast, those 25 or so genes that were activated heavily in the individuals on the supplements, many of those genes were associated with blood sugar control. Right. So they're starting to turn on all of these better improved blood sugar control genes in their body.
Here, Kiran, somebody was very Johnny on the spot or Janie on the spot. Is this the...
yes, there you go. Brian K. McFarlane. That's it.
Thank you. You all are the best. And one less thing for you to do, Kiran. Awesome.
Yeah. And so if you look at even just the title here, it says, obviously reduce visceral fat mass, but mRNA expression associated with adipose tissue inflammation, systemic inflammation, and chronic disease risk. So all of these genes that are normally on or not on, that are associated with these conditions, all of those seem to be activated or altered in some way as well. So the individual's metabolism was reprogrammed, which is what was super exciting about it.
And super recent. That is November 2022. So this is why we do these. Thank you very much. Plus, I love the annotation feature in Zoom. Okay, I'm easily amused. All right, thank you so much. Okay, Chris, that I think we just answered that. The individual probiotic you mentioned, also I'm only able to order in the US website for delivery to Canada, or is there a Canadian distributor?
Is it for the ZenBiome Dual, or which probiotic are they talking about?
I think it's for everything. You have the ZenBiome Dual now at Microbiome-Labs, don't you?
Not quite yet. It's still only through FullScript and your FullScript account.
Okay.
So any of the Canadian listeners here can order any of our products probably through you, Shivan, because in Canada they're not in country yet, but Canadians can order for personal use up to 90 days worth of a product, right?
Okay.
From the US. So you guys in your fulfillment, Shivan, you should be able to do that.
Okay, so that's going right to the microbiome website. Microbiome Labs website, and just following the same links. Clarissa, if you could put the customer service email for them over there, just for confirmation, or if anybody needs extra help. Okay, what is the difference between Restore Flora PD and Restore Flora? I'm taking Restore Flora PD following neomycin, and I would like to reorder. So explain why people would take Restore Flora, especially if they've just gone on an antibiotic, if you would.
Yeah, Restore Flora was originally designed to be one taken with an antibiotic to help reduce negative damage to the gut microbiome from the antibiotic. The PD version, and the reason it's called PD is a pharmacy direct. It was actually most recently developed as a request from lots of independent pharmacies that they want to have something ready at hand when they fill an antibiotic script to give to their patients. And so PD, what we did is we enhanced the normal Restore Flora formulation. We increased some of the spore dosage. We also added in, I believe, the bacillus coagulants, which wasn't present in the first Restore Flora. And then we also made it a 21-day supply. And so 21 days, most antibiotics are 7 days, 7 to 10 days. If you're taking a 7 to 10 day antibiotic, you want to take at least 2.5, 3 times that long of a probiotic that protects the gut. So that's why the 21 days became a good number. But there's also, I think, 10 extra capsules in there where you can now take it all the way up to around 30 days. But what we recommend to people is instead of doing 1 a day, in the first week, take 2 a day. And then the next 2 weeks, you take 1 a day. And then that way you'll use up the bottle within that 3 weeks, but you'll have additional protection in the beginning when you're taking the antibiotic. You can take it at the same time. You don't have to wait for the antibiotic to be finished and then take that. You don't have to space it out a certain number of hours apart. Just take it with the antibiotic if that's easier to remember.
Okay, let's see. Okay, just to circle back, Karen recommended Zen Biome Dual for me, but I can only get it a full script right now, even if I have a Microbiome Labs account. Is that correct? That's true. And we have a full script account with a 15% off discount for you. So at the very end, we'll pop that into the chat, but I'm just going to focus on Microbiome Labs with Kiran right now. But yes, we can help you with that for sure. Will this protocol help the side effects of psychiatric medications that affect metabolic health, like increased appetite, weight gain, etc.?
That I'm not sure about, because we did not study that as an aspect of the research. Assuming that the psychiatric medications are causing appetite issues through the same mechanisms that metabolic syndrome does, then it could. But I can't say that with certainty because we didn't test that.
Okay. Let's see. Will megaspore alone help your metabolism?
It will, yeah, absolutely. And we see that. We get that report all the time from people, cravings going down. If they are on consciously trying to lose weight, it seems to accelerate some of the results that they have. It can absolutely do it just because of its, helping with the leaky gut. Megaspore alone increases short chain fatty acid production by 50%. But when you add the prebiotic and the megaspore, it goes up to 150%. So that's why we use both in the study.
Okay. Clarissa, can you help Doris out with a customer service issue in Canada? And then Mary, if you are dealing with H. pylori, candida overgrowth, dysbiosis, and leaky gut, which order do you attack these? Bring harmony. In which products do you recommend? How is the K2 and the Megaquin D3 and the Megaquin? Okay, so let's do that first. H. pylori, candida, dysbiosis, leaky gut. Do you want me to pull up the total gut restore kit?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And then keep in mind that we have something specifically for H. pylori called Pyloguard, right? So we have Pyloguard and total gut restoration.
Here it is. There's Pyloguard.
Yeah.
I'm not sharing my screen, so who cares, right? Hold on. Sorry, guys. Share. Okay, this is what it looks like, Mary. This is Pyloguard. And then I wanted to do total gut restore. So let me look at that. And then while I'm looking that up, so talk about Total Gut Restore because this I know is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, and Mary's question was, which order do I do it in, right? You in fact, because of what you're describing, you have to kind of do it all at the same time. And the reason is because it all feeds off of one another. So the H. pylori is negating stomach acid production, right? So you're not getting enough HCl, which means you're also not acidifying your bowels the same way that you should. And that allows for things like candida to overgrow, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand. So as you're going after the H. pylori with the PyloGuard, it does help to also start going after the candida, depending on how much candida you have. Let's say you have, and you've confirmed high growth of candida, we have a product called Microbalance that specifically goes after candida. So you can utilize that as you're utilizing PyloGuard to go after H. pylori and candida at the same time. You can start the total gut restoration right at that time as well, because as you're bringing these problematic organisms down, you want to keep reinforcing and rebuilding the microbiome and the lining of the gut as well, right? So it's not too much. It's not discordant to do it all at the same time, because it all kind of fits in the same ecosystem. And so the total gut restoration is basically a system based on megaspore, megapre, and megamucosa. The idea is there's a stepwise manner in fixing the dysbiotic microbiome with megaspore. Then you reinforce these positive changes in the microbiome with megapre. And then the last step is you bring in the mucosa to revamp that mucosal and intestinal lining in your gut. And it's the restored microbiome that'll help rebuild that lining of the gut, and megamucosa has the tools to provide your microbiome to rebuild the lining of the gut.
Okay, hang on. We have 4 minutes left. I'm going to share screen. Thanks, Kiran. As always, start popping some love into the chat for Kiran. Here you go. This is Megaspore Biotic, Mega Pre-capsules, Mega Mucosa capsules. And this is if you go to the website, it's called Total Gut Restore. And you get an instruction package about like how to do the protocol, but that's what it is. So you've just touched on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How is the K2 in the Megaquin D3 and the Megaquinone K2-7 different? Know that we have a whole webinar about that. Mary, when you click on the link to go see all of Kiran's replays, it's in there. So Kiran, I'll let you take that on.
Yeah, there's no difference with the K2. The K2 is the exact same K2. It's just what is it paired with, right? So in the Megaquin D3, we paired it with D3 for those that want both K2 and D3. And then in the Megaquinone, it's without D3. It's got K1 and some zinc and magnesium in there as supportive ingredients for K2. The reason those two exist is some people already have lots of sources of D3 that they like or they take, whether it's in fortified foods or other supplements. So you don't need extra D3, right? So you just need the K2 in that case. If you're not taking D3 already and you want to take both at the same time, which is a good thing, then you've got the Megaquin D3.
And recommendation for bile acid malabsorption. Would Total Gut Restore be a good one?
It can. I mean, just Megaspore alone would absolutely help. You also need to support the liver, because anything with bile acid means your liver is probably not doing everything that it should be doing. You may need to supplement with bile temporarily. There's ox bile that you can get as a supplement, but doing some liver support, like some milk thistle with the Total Gut Restoration can be really beneficial.
Okay, this is a little bit on the spot that I'm going to put you here, but in BioGaia, and I usually don't ask you about other brands, but there's that L. reuteri with the strain that is 17938.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that, Kiran? Because if not, we'll just move on.
I'm not, but if it's BioGaia, it's likely studied in pediatrics because they do a lot of kids. Yeah. And they do great work. That's one of the few companies that really does good clinical work and all that. So I think that strain is probably really adapted well for babies and probably helps with things like colic and indigestion issues with babies. If the question, I'm just guessing, is it similar to the Megagenesis? It's probably not. It's probably a very different kind of strain.
All right. So Karen, there you go. All right. Which products and what sequence if you have Candida, SIBO, and visceral fat?
Okay, so they all feed into each other, right? So Candida, SIBO, visceral fat. You'd want to be, okay, so the SIBO is a consequence of leaky gut dysbiosis, and which then leads to overgrowth of Candida, which also then can create SIBO. So SIBO and Candida probably came last as part of your problem. They're not the core drivers, right? They are a symptom or a consequence of an underlying disruption in your gut, which is probably low diversity, low short chain fatty acids, low keystone species, and leaky gut. So the ideal thing there would be looking at the TGR, but because you're SIBO, you're probably concerned about the second month where you add in a prebiotic, right? So then the solution to that would be do month 3 as month 2. So you would do megaspore, then megamucosa, and then by month 3, add in the prebiotic, but just add in small amounts. You know, you can do, if you're doing the powder, just do a quarter or an eighth of a scoop, add it into 24 ounces of water and kind of sip it throughout the day and start getting those prebiotics into your system. Because if you're SIBO, you probably haven't consumed a prebiotic or fiber or fermentable carbohydrate in a long time, right? And your body needs it more than almost anyone else. So I would do the TGR with that reverse order of step 3 as step 2, step 2 as step 3. Often just doing that can start negating the Candida, because Candida is an opportunistic overgrower. As you fix your microbiome, the Candida will get suppressed. And then you need to fix the microbiome anyway in order to deal with the SIBO issue.
Okay, everybody. Beverly's asking, will you be making a liver supplement?
No, because there are companies that do a good job with the liver. We did publish a study showing that megaspore profoundly protects the liver. And it was a head-to-head study against milk thistle, prescription grade milk thistle out of Germany. And it protected the liver just as well. So if you combine megaspore with milk thistle, you're absolutely going to be protecting the liver. But there's companies that do good liver supplements that we don't need to recreate, but you can use megaspore to protect the liver as well.
Can we use megagenesis for the pediatric population?
We have not studied in pediatric population, so I can't say yes.
Okay. Gemma, you can do it however you want, but I would do them together, but go very slowly. Constancita, I'm taking ZenBiome Dual and I'm only taking 1 capsule a day. I've been taking this for a month. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, ZenBiome Dual, I think if I'm not mistaken, is designed to be 1 capsule a day. You could probably see on the bottle there.
It says serving size 2 caps.
Oh, 2 caps. Okay, yeah. Then you should be taking 2.
Okay,
there you go. Caps? Is it 60 caps in the bottle?
In this bottle, yes, it is.
Okay, then yes. Then you should be taking 2. Well, you could take them at the same time. Take 2 caps together.
Yeah, how do you start slowly with these guys? This is such a good question. You can literally open up the capsule and sprinkle a little teeny tiny bit, like 1/8 of a teaspoon, and see how you do. Slowly build up. There are a lot of people that quit before the miracle, and I don't want that to be you. So if you're going for the megapre and the megaspore, individual results will vary. Everyone has their own microbiome, right? So if you want to keep trying, slow. It's so easy to underestimate the power of these spores. It's a capsule. It looks like a vitamin C capsule. It looks like a capsule that could have anything in it. These are truly, truly powerful, which is why Microbiome Labs is so important within the industry and on the planet, because they truly make things that are effective and powerful. So please go slowly, especially if you're sensitive. Okay, I have to go, and I'm so sorry. And thank you so much, Kiran, for being here.
My pleasure.
We love having you. There's a lot to digest here. Rewatch this, go back, fast forward and all that. We'll be sending the replay out to you. Take advantage of the 15% discount that is very special to us. We treasure it. We appreciate it. There's the information. Kiran, I'm going to let you go. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shivan and team. We'll see you again.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much. Okay, and Clarissa, go ahead and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Clarissa. I really appreciate you being here. Don't go anywhere, though, Clarissa. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for being part of our community.